American isolationists always want nothing to do with the rest of the world, yet they still want America to be the top dog. And if you said to the American isolationists, you can remove yourself from the world, absolutely. So I find this blitheness and the frivolity of it to be absolutely intolerable among the critics on the right. Enemy. That's why they call America the big Satan and Israel the little Satan. And as I always say, my country of birth is a rather sweet middle-sized Satan. A teenage Satan. With growing pains. You think some stupid college kid at Berkeley or Columbia who's getting their parents to remortgage the house so they can shit in a bucket in the center of the square of their campus and claim they're liberating some people they've never met in a region they've never traveled to. You think any of those people actually love America?
After World War I, nearly 70% of Americans supported isolationism, believing it would keep us safe from foreign conflicts. Fast forward to today, and we see a world increasingly defined by authoritarian regimes and global crises. From rising tensions with China to the ongoing threats to democracy in Eastern Europe and the Israel-Gaza conflict. Between all these challenges, is stepping back truly the solution?
The question I've always asked is, why would it be in America's interest or the West's interest for Russia to simply take Ukraine? But where do you think that's coming from?
Well, some of it is the inevitable blowback of failed foreign policy of the 2000s. It's something that's very striking to me in Republican politics has been that at some point, you might say that John McCain was a kind of pivotal figure. At some point, the so-called adults in the room stopped being respected as adults. And you can lament that, but you can also say, well, to an extent, they brought it upon themselves. I remember I sort of got off that bandwagon by the time of Syria. Maybe people think that's a bit late, but I remember when I heard McCain and others saying, we know who to arm in Syria, I was thinking, I don't believe you anymore. I don't think you do. I think we're going to make a hideous mistake again. But by the way, the West got blamed for the breakdown of Syria despite not intervening. And we would have been blamed if we had intervened, because some people don't know who to blame unless it's us. I do think that, yes, I think there was a huge loss of institutional knowledge and generational self-belief, actually. I think it might be something like the post-Vietnam era in America. And of course, everything's so easy to understand in the rearview mirror. Everybody's an expert at that. But I would say that in relation to Ukraine, America, I understand the American isolationist trend, and I deplore it, because in the case of Ukraine, I mean, if you go to the Baltic states, which are NATO members, they're really not bluffing when they say that they're worried that if Putin takes everything he wants in Ukraine, they're next. I was in Vilnius recently. It's so close. It's so close. These are our allies. If you want to ditch your allies, well, that's an idea. But, come out and say it.
Murray's perspective on American isolationism is both thought-provoking and alarming. His emphasis on the risks of abandoning allies resonates strongly, highlighting how history can repeat itself if the lessons from past conflicts are ignored. It seems short-sighted to step back now, especially when the stakes are so high. The stability of regions like Eastern Europe is directly tied to broader security concerns, and engaging with allies is not just a political obligation. It's a moral commitment to democracy and freedom. Murray's call for a more active role in global affairs is a sentiment that many wholeheartedly support.
The Central and Eastern Europeans really aren't bluffing, and it's even easier to see this as a far-off conflict in the US than it is in, say, Britain. So the Europeans are genuinely worried. Of course, they should pay their way in NATO, of course, but they're not faking it. And there are some people now who pretend that Vladimir Putin only wants Ukraine. And among other reasons I know that's wrong was that I was in the country of Georgia after Vladimir Putin invaded it. And so I have enough muscle memory to remember countries that Vladimir Putin's invaded. There are a lot of people with no memory at all. But I think that's, broadly speaking, what people are thinking is we've screwed up a lot. we don't believe anyone who says they know about foreign policy and it's all just a mess and the world's a mess. I find it an odd tendency on the American right in particular, because it always strikes me as being inherently contradictory. The American isolationists always want nothing to do with the rest of the world, yet they still want America to be the top dog. And if you said to the American isolationists, you can remove yourself from the world, absolutely, but you should know that it means in the 21st century, China or other countries, any number of other countries, will replace America as well as dominant power. And if you are happy with that, argue it out. But that is the consequence. I mean, America may have got fat and lazy, but China is hungry as hell.
Eastern European nations absolutely have fears that are legitimate and rooted in real historical aggression. It's unsettling to see some Americans dismiss these worries, treating the conflict as a distant issue. His critique of isolationists is particularly striking. How can one want the U.S. to remain a dominant power, while also advocating for disengagement from global affairs? It's a dangerous contradiction. If America retreats, it risks ceding its influence to countries like China, eager to fill that void. This serves as a crucial reminder that isolationism isn't just a policy choice. It has real consequences for global stability and U.S. leadership.
I think on Israel, it's a different thing that's going on. I mean, left-wing, I've said a lot in recent months, I think one of the interesting things about anti-Semitism, and I do think the criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic, because I think it comes down to the thing of not just double but triple standards. I think, as I say again, if this wild lack of empathy for the state of Israel means anything, you've got to come back to this primordial triple standard. And we know it can come from anywhere, and that anti-Semitism is a shape-shifting virus, can come from left or right, can come from everywhere at the same time. I think the one thing that's interesting about the movement of some people on the right against Israel, and playing around with anti-Semitic tropes for sure, in a way which you could predict but maybe not expect, is that they seem to think that there's something strange. I get this a bit against myself and my preoccupation with this issue in the last year. Going back many years, but particularly in the last year. And people say, well, why are you so bothered about Israel? And I hear that from the right. The left don't care. They know I'm beyond saving. But on the right, I hear that. And I think they don't realize, they think it's some weird thing. Like, what is this small state? Why does it bother you? I don't think they've even remotely reflected on what I regard as the deepest reasons to care. It seems to me, if, as you well know, Western civilization is based on the legacy of Athens and Jerusalem. Athens is under great assault always, but it's not actually under existential assault at the moment.
Surrounding criticism of Israel and the nuances of anti-Semitism, the complexities warrant thoughtful consideration. The prevalence of double and triple standards often shapes the discourse about Israel, complicating genuine discussions on the topic. It's important to recognize that anti-Semitism can arise from both the left and the right, highlighting the multifaceted nature of this issue. Additionally, the curiosity some individuals express about why others hold strong concerns regarding Israel reflects a broader dialogue about the implications of such criticisms within the context of Western values. These observations encourage a nuanced examination of the motivations behind various perspectives on Israel and its role in global affairs.
What is being attempted by Israel's enemies is the philosophical and cultural equivalent of burning all the libraries of Alexandria. This is one of the underpinnings of Western civilization, utterly at risk. And not in a sort of metaphorical way where people might use it as a sort of book subtitle, but the real thing. I mean, I've sometimes thought about it this way. I haven't tried this out in public before. How many Jews are there in the world?
15 million.
15 million, okay. This may come across really coarse. But let me put it this way. I mean, there are lots of conflicts in the world, and I've covered a lot of conflicts involving a lot of people, but it's conceivable that at some point 15 million Christians could be killed. It would be a disaster, a tragedy. It's conceivable that at some point, Burma, India, somewhere, 15 million Muslims could be killed. It would be a disaster. It would be a tragedy of an unimaginable scale, of mid-20th century scale. But if 15 million Jews were killed, that's the end of the story. That's it.
If we look at the bigger picture, the imagery of burning the libraries of Alexandria serves as a powerful metaphor for the existential threats that confront Israel today. This act would not just erase books. It symbolizes the potential loss of significant cultural and philosophical contributions to Western civilization. With a global Jewish population of just 15 million, the implications of such a loss become starkly evident. While the tragedy of any cultural or religious group's disappearance is undeniable, the notion that the end of this particular community could signify a dramatic conclusion to its historical narrative is unsettling.
Now, what does that mean for the Jewish people? It's the end, that the people who saw off everyone from Pharaoh to Hitler disappeared in the 21st century. Everyone else, in my view, wouldn't survive either. Western civilization could not survive the destruction of the Jewish state because it would be, among much else, the cutting away of the whole tree that we're on, and Western civilization would die. So I regard the existential threat against the Jewish people to not just be about the Jewish people. It matters deeply to me that it is about the Jewish people. But it also matters to me because it's about America. Could America survive if the Jewish people were no more on its watch, or everybody was forcibly deported from the Holy Land? Come on. Of course not. Could the isolationists bear the repercussions of that across the Middle East and elsewhere? Of course not. So I find this blitheness and the frivolity of it to be absolutely intolerable among the critics on the right.
A world without the Jewish state raises uncomfortable questions about the narratives surrounding cultural and national identity. The argument that the survival of the Jewish people is crucial to the fabric of Western civilization suggests an unsettling dependency that raises eyebrows. Such claims imply that the existence of one group is essential for the stability of a broader society, which can overshadow the complexities of diverse histories. The notion that America or any nation would suffer significantly from the absence of Jews in the Holy Land seems to elevate one group's importance above others, fostering a troubling hierarchy of cultural significance. This perspective can lead to a narrow understanding of global dynamics, where the fate of one community is unfairly tied to the survival of entire civilizations.
I mean, it's sort of. I'm always baffled by the fact that people don't believe the words that come out of people's mouths. The Hamas leadership, the Hezbollah leadership, the leadership in Tehran, the revolutionary Islamic government, have all made perfectly clear what they want to do with Israel. But they don't regard Israel as being the main problem. They regard it as being the main regional problem for them and their expansionist Islamist worldview. But it's America that's their biggest enemy. That's why they call America the big Satan and Israel the little Satan. And as I always say, my country of birth is a rather sweet middle-sized Satan, a teenage Satan with growing pains. But you know, there's a reason they think that. There's another way of doing it, which is here at home. Why is it you can make the following prediction with 100% accuracy? If there is a pro-Israel demonstration in America, or in Britain, or in Paris, there will be flying of the Israeli flag, and there will be the flying of this flag of the United States of America, or Great Britain, or France. if recently I was speaking at an event in Montreal, and it was about 1,000 Jews and about 1,000 Christians, and it was in a synagogue, and it was a wonderful, wonderful evening, and everyone sang "O Canada" and "Hatikva," and it's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful. And it's also, there's something sad about it, because, of course, Jews are forever saying, we are part of this country, we're showing you, and are very often ignored.
Murray highlights the puzzling aspect of global discourse lies in the reluctance to fully engage with the statements made by leaders of Hamas and similar groups. These factions have clearly outlined their objectives regarding Israel, framing it as a significant regional concern within their broader agenda. In contrast, pro-Israel rallies in countries like the United States, Britain, or France typically feature both Israeli and host country flags, signaling a perceived connection. This practice highlights the complexities of national and ethnic identities, particularly for Jewish communities seeking recognition and acceptance. Despite efforts to demonstrate integration and commitment to their nations, these communities often encounter marginalization in public discourse, prompting essential questions about accepting diverse identities in contemporary society.
But why can you predict with 100% accuracy that the pro-Palestinian, not to mention pro-Hamas, demonstrators will never in America carry an American flag? Why do we know with 100% accuracy that when 100,000 mainly Muslim demonstrators go through the streets of London on a Saturday, they will not finish the demonstration by singing "God Save the King"? Why do I know that with 100% accuracy? Because it's not about Israel. It's about America. It's about Britain. It's about France. They hate Israel first, and it's the easiest one to hate. But they hate everybody else next. You think some stupid college kid at Berkeley or Columbia who's getting their parents to remortgage the house so they can shit in a bucket in the center of the square of their campus and claim they're liberating some people they've never met in a region they've never traveled to. You think any of those people actually love America and just happen to have a problem with this country they've never visited and don't know anything about? They happen to have this problem about that, and they're willing to set up weird encampments and become even less educated than they were when they went to campus. And you think they're just want mild adjustments in welfare reform in the US? Give me a break. This is a revolutionary movement, and it finds its first and most fevered and most flattered version in its attack on Israel. But of course it's anti-American, of course it's anti-Western, of course it's anti-British and anti-European.
A striking observation emerges when comparing pro-Palestinian demonstrations with those supporting Israel. Pro-Palestinian or pro-Hamas rallies in the U.S. frequently lack the presence of American flags, while pro-Israel events typically display both the Israeli and American flags. This absence raises questions about the motivations of those participating in these protests. The rhetoric surrounding these demonstrations suggests that the animosity directed at Israel serves as a gateway to a broader disdain for Western nations, including the U.S. and Britain. Activists often present themselves as self-righteous crusaders for causes they barely comprehend, highlighting a disconnect between the ideals promoted in protests and the complexities of the geopolitical issues involved. In a world marked by complex geopolitical tensions, the debate on American isolationism raises vital questions about global engagement and its impact on democracy and freedom. Douglas Murray emphasizes that withdrawing from international affairs could embolden adversaries and undermine stability. The contrast between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israel demonstrations highlights deep-seated motivations tied to identity and allegiance. Ultimately, the choice between isolation and engagement becomes a moral imperative that shapes the future of democratic values and international relations. Now, the point here is this: how can we, as global citizens, actively champion a world where diverse identities are celebrated and engagement leads to lasting peace?